Okay, 2017 Nashville Jets. Who's excited about going to Japan?
Yeah!
I like this group already. Make some noise. I'm going to talk to you about learning Japanese. During the recruiting phase, we get to say, oh, Japanese ability is not required for the JET program. So then you apply, and you get to this point, and we tell you, oh, but you're going to live in Japan. You're going to have to learn. So, sort of judging the level of the group here, where are my absolute beginners? Starting from absolute 0. That's okay. That's the level I teach. I love beginners because you know where they stand. Oh, wow. Okay, okay. Who here has taken 1 to 2 semesters in college? Okay. How about more than 2 semesters but not quite a major? Okay, most of the group. Japanese majors? Okay. Anyone longer than that, like a JLPT N2 or anything like that? Okay, good. Good crowd, good crowd, good crowd. Me, myself, and I started from absolute 0 studying Japanese in 1999. And since then, the acquisition of the language for myself and for other people is the pursuit of my life. This is what I get up and do every day. I teach Japanese at the Tennessee Foreign Language Institute here in Nashville. I give a lot of presentations. During my time in Japan, I went to get the Japanese Language Proficiency Test, JLPT. You'll hear me say that a lot. The top level, level 1, since gone on to get a master's degree in Japanese, and have years of experience in the automotive industry here in Nashville. I've translated a few manga, things like that. So this is what I chose to do with my life. My participation on JET, my main goal was to acquire Japanese language for the rest of my career. So, sort of my big philosophy, there we go, on things is that we could spend this panel talking about all sorts of apps and resources and books and little tips and tricks for studying. One of the big pieces of hate I get in the panel surveys is that participants say, I wanted you to explain the Japanese course the JET program offers. And you're going to hear plenty about that course later on, trust me. I want to put your mind at ease. You're going to get all the information you need about taking that course in Tokyo, in your prefecture. A lot of people also say, I want to know what I can do in my town. Well, I'm sorry to say I've never been to your town. There's no other Kagawa Jets here. But when you get to your town, you're going to have a prefectural orientation. And they'll tell you where you can take classes, where you can buy books, that type of thing. So if I spent this panel talking about the JET program, Japanese course, or that type of thing, we'd really be wasting our time, because what I have a lot of expertise in, where my Jedi Master training has come in, has been the fundamentals of success in language learning. Why all the stuff on the surface actually works. There are a lot fewer laws to the fundamentals of success that support why all those tips and tricks work. So today, in this panel, that's what I'm going to talk about. The fundamentals of being successful as a language learner. That's where I can really help you with. So, one thing about JET is it is, in the course of your entire life, going to be the absolute prime time to learn the Japanese language. I assume all of us started from 0 at some point, right? You're at 0, and then you started studying in your classes. Maybe you did a study abroad, and your level started to increase gradually. When you're on JET, it's going to skyrocket, okay? This is the time to launch your Japanese ability into the stratosphere. The reasons for this are, you can have increased linguistic stimulus. What do I mean by that? I'm kind of a linguistic nerd. I use these fancy academic terms. What do I mean by that, you think? Shout it out.
Like more situations where you're forced to speak Japanese.
You're forced to speak Japanese. You're hearing Japanese. You're seeing Japanese all the time. That's hitting your brain at exponentially more than it is here. And that is what is needed, just to hit your brain with it. That's the basics of what you need to increase your language acquisition. So you've got that. You also have the free time to study. Your contract will stipulate when your workday begins and when it ends. And you can build your schedule around that to study 1, 2, 4 hours a day, depending on what your goals are. You also, a lot of people I know have just got out of college are used to making an hourly salary. Now you're going to make it real money, okay? You've got the tax breaks and things like that. You have the money to invest. You can go buy books, textbooks. You can buy an electronic dictionary. You can pay to take a course. You can pay the registration fee for a proficiency test. You'll have that money, and now is the time to invest it in anything like that. Don't let the money scare you. And most of all, you'll have support. The JET program, your supervisor, your JTEs, your Japanese teachers of English you work with, the fellow JETs around you, your students. Everybody wants you to learn Japanese. Everybody is rooting for you to get better at Japanese. In terms of your teachers and students, it's because it makes their life easier. It also makes your life easier in getting around. A lot of people I've heard say, oh, I'm going to do JET for a year and then I may go to get a master's in Japanese in California, Ohio or something. Or I'll do JET a couple of years and I'll come back to the States and get a job and then I'll take my JLPT in too. That is a really flawed way to think about it. If you have some sort of Japanese language goal in your life, JET's the time to get to it. Because JET will be the peak of your Japanese ability, okay? That'll be the top. Was it the same way for you guys, you think?
Yes.
Yes. It's over. A lot of people come home. What happens? Your ability drops, and then it stabilizes out. Even if you stay in Japan, unless you go to a language school or something, let's say you get a job in Japan and stay there, you're probably going to be working more hours. You're going to have more expenses for housing, transportation. You're going to have less time. So you're still going to experience the same drop and stabilization. Stabilization in Japanese is te chakuka. Repeat after me. Te chakuka. You guys are good. Okay. This is what happens to all of us. Everybody in here a human being? Yep. That's what's going to happen to you in terms of your Japanese ability, how it's going to progress. And so as you see on that chart, JET is the time to really bump it up. Now, set goals. If while I'm talking, everybody could just write your goal. What's your goal for learning Japanese? Sketch it down on your notes or whatever, or keep it in your head. Give you like 30 seconds to do this. You probably may have had to write this in your application essay. You may have put it on the application form. It may have come up in your interview. You know, I've interviewed hundreds of JETs. I know we tend to talk about this. What's your goal for learning Japanese? Everybody just sketch that down real quick. Or keep it in your mind. You got it? You got it in your mind? You got it on the paper? What do you want to accomplish in the 1 to 5 years? Okay, good. Here's, when I ask this question to people, here's a lot of the type of goals I hear. And for 900 years have I trained JETs. My own counsel will I keep. I want to get fluent is a big one. Things like this. I want to be able to walk around and talk to people. And I'm not going to read all that, but this is the type of thing that I hear. And my question is, are these goals SMART? Are these SMART goals to have? Anybody know this acronym from the business world? Anything like that? You've heard of it? Yeah?
I can't tell you what it is, but I know it's attainable something.
Yeah, some people use different meanings. Here's the acronym I'm going to go with. SMART, it's specific. You know what you're doing exactly. You know when you get there. You know when you've accomplished it. M, measurable. It's quantified. It has some sort of number attached to it. A, I use action-oriented, as in you're going to physically have to do something. There's going to be a physical action verb. Study, make flashcards, go to class, some sort of action behind it. R, it has to be realistic. I see so many people, who here is familiar with JLPT? Okay, a few people. What I see a lot of times is like, oh, I'm going to take JLPT into, man, that's me. That's me, that's hardcore. And what happens? They go fail it because they weren't realistic about where their abilities and where their goals were. And finally, T, it's time-based. It has a deadline by when it will be complete. It has a schedule that you're going to work on. This is how you make a SMART goal. So if we go back to the goals I hear all the time, are those SMART goals? I want to get fluent. Let's take that one. Is that a SMART goal?
No.
Why not?
Because it's unrealistic. I mean, what is fluent?
Exactly. What does fluent mean? Fluency is the speed and proficiency at which you can speak, at which words can come out of your mouth. Doesn't necessarily have to do with reading something and translate it into English. It's a separate skill. Fluent is not defined. It means different things to different people. Somebody could go over there with no ability, be on jet for a month, walk into the bar and be like, "Haji Mama Shia, Amei-chan, Watashi wa John desu." And you know what Amei-chan's going to say? She's going to say, "Sugoi, ojozu desu ne." They're always going to tell you you are ojozu desu ne. That you are good at Japanese, no matter what type of crap comes out of your mouth, they're going to tell you you're good at it. And then you know what you're going to think? Oh, I'm fluent. I've done it. I'm fluent now. I've reached that goal. But if you have a SMART goal, SMART goal, this is something you can achieve. Okay, these are just a few examples I've come up with. We don't have any beginners, but you could learn all your 46 hiragana and katakana before departure. The rest of you, if you have, you want to meet a speaking partner, you want to take a JLPT, these are ways to make SMART goals. So whatever it is you wrote down as your goal that you have in your head, run it through this litmus test. Is it SMART or not? If it's not, revise it. That's the point of goals. We have something, we can revise it if we need to. And make your goal SMART before departure and then start committing to the action of it. Any questions so far? I know I talk fast. We okay? Wow, my point's that clear. No questions. Guys, throw up the hands at any time. You got questions, you got a comment, or anything like that. Just stop me in the gravy train that I am. Okay, no beginners, right? None? Oh my goodness. Well, this point's kind of moot, and I work a lot on this point. Well, you did receive the Japanese for Jets book, so I have to say a little something about that. This right here is a scan of English textbook in Japan, kind of like this one right here, that you guys, especially at the junior high level, will be using. And we see the lesson is, do you play the piano? Yes, I do. And we see all the vocabulary words over there and everything. I've got this great idea that's going to revolutionize English education in Japan. Ready to hear it? This is pretty disruptive, but this will make it better, I promise you. You ready? I can hear you.
Yes.
I suggest we take all those English alphabet letters and replace them with katakana. Do you play the piano? Yes, I do. That'll save us so much time in teaching the alphabet. That'll make our students feel so much more at ease. What do you guys think? It's a great idea, right? Stephen, you're shaking your head. Why not?
It's just parroting sounds. They're not internalizing what they're reading.
Right. It's not the language itself. It's a phonetic representation of the language. What would happen to a Japanese student taught English in this way?
Their pronunciation would be all off, and
Yep.
they would just be speaking phonetically without adding meaningfulness to their words.
Without true acquisition of the language. If you flip through your Japanese for Jet book, my question is, why would you do the exact same thing to yourself? A lot of apps out there. That book you just given teaches Japanese in Romaji. I'm not a Jet program coordinator, so I can say things like this anymore. You can't fire me, I already quit. But I'm not going to talk about how I feel about that book, otherwise this podium's going to go through that window. But out there, anybody know Tofugu? Great site for living in Japan, learning Japanese. It's out there. That the book is filled with Romaji. It's best to pass on it and find something better. So, the next thing I wanted to talk about is something I feel so religious about, so intense about, that I call it the Gospel of John Sensei. Which is that you do not study Japanese in the Roman alphabet, which we call Romaji, for some of the reasons we discussed. What do? You get apps. I put a list in our Facebook group compiled by my students and myself of some of my favorites, and of course my personal favorite's Hiragana Breaker because I designed it and released it. The more advanced group. Anybody use any of these apps or programs I have up on the board? Yeah, shout it out. What do you use in the back?
Memrise.
Memrise? How do you like it?
I like it well.
Yeah? What do you like about it?
I like some of the already customized decks you can just download and use. And
Okay.
they're pretty simple, you don't have to make your own.
So if you wanted to say a JLPT N5 and 4 deck, you could probably find that out there.
Those are
Yeah.
pretty good.
Okay. Who else has used one of these? Yeah. Anki? What can you tell us about Anki?
You get to make your own decks.
You make your own decks. Yeah, it's a lot faster. Who else has used one of these? Yeah, which
I
one?
also use Anki.
can also do pre-made decks as well.
You can also find pre-made decks out there. What's sort of the advantage of these apps? I have it written up there.
Repetition.
Yeah, spaced repetition. Not only repetition, which is good, but spaced repetition. So you guys have used it. If you keep getting a card right as you practice, what happens?
Push it further back.
It pushes it further back. You see that card less. If there's a really difficult word that you just keep getting wrong, what happens?
You see it every day.
You see it every day. You see it a lot more. And through that frequency, you're going to get more used to those words. And so the software itself, just from the way it's designed, can really point out your own weaknesses and help you address those very efficiently. Anybody got anything else they'd like to share about an SRS app that they've used or anything? Any questions about them? Has everybody used one before? Okay. Good, good. Keep that up for you more advanced learners, especially with your kanji. Okay. Who's heard of this resource, Aaron's Challenge? You've heard of it? Okay, you're like the first in like the 5 years of it. What can you tell us about it?
It's really good for like listening. They have like lots of videos.
Lots of videos.
They like use Japanese in like a number of different situations. So you can pick up on grammatical concepts that they use in like actual real conversation.
Okay. And what are a lot of those videos and lessons designed around?
Introducing you to both Japanese grammar and Japanese culture.
I guess in sort of a narrative setting.
Oh yeah. It's based on like this girl Erin, who's like a foreign exchange student from England, and she is navigating life as like a foreign exchange student. So like,
right. So she's going to high school in Japan, and she has to go to places like the shokurin shitsu, which means the staff room, or the kyoshitsu, the classroom. And so all the lessons in this are designed around school life, which is the life you're about to start leading in a month or so. And so if you had to pick one resource that's probably most appropriate for the daily jet work life to be studying before you depart, it would be this one, Aaron's Challenge. Very well put together, very well designed lessons, and completely relevant to what you guys are going to be living and working every day. So studying in Japan, what can you do? Create SMART goals, like we talked about. Have some of those ready before you depart. Do sign up for the JET Program Japanese course offered by Claire. It's now an online type of course. You will get the information at your future orientations about how to sign up for this. And as you take it, as you go through it, make sure that you're following it, that you're turning tests in on time, and all of that. There are some unlisted benefits. Take out that.
Okay.
In my own case, my own study for the JLPT surpassed the course I was taking. And I was getting kind of bored with it, but I kept taking the test. I kept up with it, and I got to go 2 weeks, all expenses paid, didn't have to take vacation, to an intensive Japanese program in Osaka. Find classes at centers and at schools. Depending on the size of the town you're in, you may be able to find a language school. You may be able to find a community center that offers Japanese classes for foreign residents. And even if you live an hour or so away from your big city, you might be able to do that. You might be able to swing by on the weekends and take a class, or once a week and take a class. And there's a lot of benefits to studying with other people, not just isolating yourself in your room, but being involved with others and learning to speak the language. Designate butt in chair time. What do you think I mean by that? Study. You are going to pick up a lot, but it's not all going to happen through the power of osmosis. You're going to have to put your butt in the chair. You're going to have your textbooks out, and your pencils out, and your apps and your computer out. You're actually going to have to study. Study for those SMART goals, for that JLPT or whatever it is. You actually got to make the time as much as you can every day. Schedule time. Say, oh, that's button chair time from 5 to 6 o'clock. I have to study today. Clean the dirty window. What am I talking about with this? I don't know how you guys felt. This is how I felt in Japan. I felt like as I walked around, I was in like this glass box that was really dirty. And I had trouble seeing the world around me. I had trouble understanding what was going on. What's that written on the board? I can't really see it. You know, where am I going? I can't really see the signs. And the activity of studying Japanese was the activity of scrubbing that dirty window and cleaning the glass around me. So now, oh, I can see. I can read what's written on the board. I know we have a staff meeting this afternoon. Now I can see that a little bit clearer. oh, I can read the signs and know I'm going in the wrong bathroom. Or that, oh no, this is dishwashing detergent and not sugar, like how I thought it was. It all starts to become clearer the more you put into studying Japanese. It is cleaning the dirty window. And finally, take proficiency tests regularly. As I said, you've got the time, you've got the money, sign up for them. So who else heard of JLPT? I've said it 100 times already. Okay, anybody have a certification on them? Nope? Okay, good. Talking to the right crowd. Japanese language proficiency test, JLPT is one. J-test is another I'll talk about. And there's a business Japanese test if you've passed all of those and you get really bored or you hate yourself. You might enjoy taking that. I know I did. The JLPT is the big one. It is the internationally recognized standard of Japanese language proficiency. You could stay in Japan, you could go to Europe, you could come back to the United States. If you're looking to get a job using your Japanese ability, they will most likely understand what JLPT is and what it means. What it is for an employer is it's a very clear definition of basically how many kanji you know, how many words you know. Can you read emails? Can you read technical documents? Can you have a conversation? Can you sit in a meeting and kind of get the idea? Can you sit in a meeting and be a participant in that meeting? This is a really easy way for employers to judge that type of ability. And what does it give you? What kind of goal does it give you? Just looking at it.
Measurable.
SMART.
SMART goals. A JLPT is a SMART goal, sort of by its own nature. It gives you something to aim for. So, a little bit about the JLPT. I am tomorrow putting on a seminar from 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock here in Nashville at the Tennessee Foreign Language Institute, or TFLI, where I teach. We've timed this seminar to kind of match up with your guys' Q&A to really help you all out. JLPT, for me, has been the foundation of my career after JET. I could not do all the great stuff I've done if I didn't have my JLPT certification. So I'm just out to help other people get that certification. So hope you can join us from 1 to 4 in the live event. Have a lot of good discussion, a lot of good tips and tricks. I'll give you a little bit of a preview though. Would you like to see it? Okay. My first piece of advice is that when you register for the test and you walk into that test room, you want to make sure you walk out with a certification when you're done. To do that, you register for the highest level that you know you can pass without a single doubt in your mind. Okay? What do I mean by that? Well, someday in a job interview, and I've paid to license this photo because I like this photo, and I've kind of been that guy a lot of the times. The question is going to be, are you JLPT certified? Okay, you want to be a translator here, or you want to be an account manager or whatever, are you JLPT certified? That's a yes or no question, okay? However, the answer I hear a lot of the times goes something like this. Well, I was on the JET program for 3 years, and I used Japanese at work every day, and I saw this job you needed an N2, so I signed up for the N2, and yeah, I failed it, but only by like 12 points or so, come on! That's a long way to say no. Basically, I could go out to somebody on the street and be like, are you JLPT certified? And they're like, I don't have any idea what you're talking about. Get away from me, you're green. That's still no. In the eyes of an employer, no has the same weight as no. Okay? You want to make sure you answer yes to this question, even if it's a lower level than what you wanted, what your pride told you you should have. You want to, nobody here is JLPT certified, so everybody this December should be aiming to get a JLPT certification in your hand. Not taking the level you want because you want it, but what will give you that cert to put on a resume right away. On my website, and sometimes I talk about the difference between activity and results. Something that was like, I was on the JET program for 1 year, yippee! I partied a lot, woohoo! That's just activity. In the real world, later by employers, you are judged by the results you have achieved. That's how you are evaluated for your ability to perform certain tasks or jobs. So I was on JET for 1 year and got a JLPT in 5. This is a result. This is something the world and no one else can ever take away from you. This will be there with you forever. So make sure that you're appropriately registering for the test. Most people fail it when they register for it, because they registered for a level that was too high at their ability just because that was the level they wanted. Don't let it happen to you. The key to passing the JLPT and proficiency exams is to actually sit for these tests and gain that valuable test-taking experience. There are lots of books. We've got some over here. You can take a look at them, okay? There's lots of these practice tests out here like this. Sitting in your room by yourself and hating yourself while taking this test is not the experience you necessarily need to be successful at it. You need to get up, get on the bus, get some breakfast, know what it's like to actually sit in that test room, to be nervous, to make sure that you have your test voucher ready, all of that. An online test or a practice test is no substitute for the real thing. Therefore, you want to take JLPT and JTest as many times as you can. You can take it this December. Take it this December. You can take JLPT in July again next year. Go take it in July. Take it as many times as you can. Which leads me to JTest. Anybody ever heard of this one? No, I didn't think so. It's kind of similar to the JLPT, but it knows its place. The difference between JTest and JLPT, you pass or fail. And if you fail, you get nothing. Okay? Failure on JLPT is worth nothing. JTest is not a pass-fail system. It's use 1,000 points, you got 610. Okay? It's just to judge where you're at. And it's offered more times in a year, 4 to 6 times depending on the level. And again, you can easily choose what level you need to register for because it does compare itself to the JLPT. It knows its place. So here is your guys' situation. You're going to land in Japan. You have about a month of summer vacation or so. Okay? And that'll be your time to figure out where's your grocery store, go through your orientations, all of that. And then by the time school starts around September 1st, you're going to hear people talking about registering for the JLPT. That's when the test application opens up in Japan. It's only open for a month, the month of September. You can Google how to do that through the online process, or you can do it in some bookstores, I understand. And so you're going to register for that test in September. Everybody, every jet in this room, remember this, September, register for the JLPT, okay? And then you'll actually take that test Sunday, December 3rd. The first Sunday every year is when it's offered, okay? But nobody in here is taking a JLPT, right? You could really use some experience. You have?
Oh, no.
You have? Do you have a certification?
No, almost passing.
Okay, but we've talked about that, what almost pass means. Yeah. Doesn't mean a lot. What you can do, for those of you who haven't taken JLPT before, come before October 18th, you can sign up for JTest. Now, when's the JTest offered? November 19th. Before the JLPT, right? Yeah. So this will give you great test-taking experience before you go in there to the JLPT. Because like I said, when you walk in the JLPT room, you want to walk out with a certification. And so you want to know when you walk in, you've done everything in your power that you possibly could have done with the time you were given to make sure you get that certification. And taking JTest is one more thing that you can do. Any questions about JLPT? Again, this is just a preview of what I'm going to talk about for 3 hours tomorrow. It's something I really believe in and that I really want to help people out with. So if you have questions and can't come tomorrow, be sure to ask them right now. Yeah.
I'm real curious, just as a quick summary, is it like a multiple choice, like an ACT, or is it writing, or what's
it's multiple choice. So you'll have 4 choices each question on characters, your Japanese characters, your vocabulary, your grammar, reading comprehension, and listening comprehension. It's got those 5, and they're all multiple choice.
Are they usually offered in every prefecture?
Usually, pretty much in most prefectures. In my case, in Kagawa, we were about a 3-hour bus ride from Osaka. But it was our JLPT was in Takamatsu, our capital city, which was the city I lived. So Kagawa Prefecture is the smallest prefecture in Japan. They're only known for udon. That's all people have to live for, is eating udon. And
there's a lot of good stuff about Kagawa. Don't listen to me.
And we still had a JLPT test site at Kagawa University in Takamatsu. For J-test, what I would do is we were a 3-hour bus ride from Osaka, and I would ride the bus to Osaka and sort of spend the day, spend the weekend. You know, I'd take the test for 3 or 4 hours, and then I would just go eat a lot of awesome food or whatever. So one thing that's great about Japan, I didn't hear anybody say Okinawa or Hokkaido or any sort of extreme, any placements in that. Mostly where you are, within a few hour bus ride or train ride, you can get to a major city like Osaka, Kyoto, Hiroshima, Tokyo, something like that, where you could take the test. And again, that's part of the process of it. When I was a student in Tokyo, I actually lived in Chiba, and yeah, I had to get up and figure out the bus routes and all that to get to the Chiba Business School where they had the test site. Again, that's part of the test-taking experience you probably never thought about, but that is something you have to do. Get up, find your way there, learn your way around. So that's why it's important to go ahead and start doing that. Oh, we have 2 questions.
I wasn't sure if I missed anything. There's no oral component to it?
There's no oral component to it. But as I'm going to talk about tomorrow, that doesn't mean you get to skip out on practicing writing, because they have ways to trick you, to test you on your writing. You also do need to get your speaking up, because that'll help your listening. And the listening test is something that gets a lot of people. One thing about the JLPT, it's got the 5 sections. They subgroup them differently, maybe into 3 sections. I'm doing like the Spock thing, depending on the level. But the point is, let's say you have to get a 70% or 60% to pass. You could get that on the overall test. But if you failed listening, you fail the whole test. So you have to pass each individual section as well and make sure that all of your language skills, reading, writing, listening, and speaking, are bumped up, even though it doesn't have a speaking component or a writing component. We had a question back here.
I was going to ask, how many times a year is the test offered?
In Japan, twice a year, December and July. Overseas, just only in December.
Okay. So therefore, is it realistic to go from one level to the next? You know, if you were to take the test twice a year, say.
What I'm going to talk about in the seminar is it typically takes a year. And what I've also seen people do, I've seen this at JET applicants. They'll have an N5. They got the N5 certification. They didn't register for N4. They failed it. What do you think they did next? They should have taken N4 again, right? They registered for N3. And what do you think happened to them then? They failed that. If you are not an N4 material, you are not N3 material. What I would suggest to you is take it this time, since everybody studied Japanese, take the level you know you can pass this December. And come July, register for that next level, even if you're going to fail. I failed level 1 the first time I took it, which kind of leads to my last point, that without failure, there is no learning. The last thing I want to leave you with is please go over to Japan, have a great time, study a lot of Japanese, but fail as much as you can. Because your success rate is essentially going to trail your failure rate. If you're scared to try to order something in a restaurant because you're going to fail, I'll give you John Sensei's guarantee. You are. But go do it. There is so much value and so much learned in failing. Don't go fail the JLPT. Don't misunderstand me on that part. If you don't have the cert, get the cert. And then from there, next July, go register for the next level. If you fail it in July, register again in December. And I would say, yeah, if you're studying, if you've got your SMART goals, if you're looking, okay, I need to know this many kanji, so I need to go study 5 kanji a day. What do I mean by study? I mean write it down 20 times and then make a flashcard in my app and go over my flashcards every day. If you are doing that, then yeah, you can definitely hit each level within a year. And if you're really good, maybe the lower levels, you could hit, within that 6-month period. That'd take a lot of work, but easily every year you could bump up that JLPT ladder. Great question. Anything else before I leave you today? How are we doing on time?
Doing fine.
Doing fine? We got time for questions. Yeah, in the back.
Just in terms of like longevity of having studied, is it realistic to skip the N5 if you studied for more than 3 years and then try and take the N3 or the N4 if you're confident that you've been studying kanji, N4 kanji for a couple of years?
So if you go to the JLPT's official website, they will give you a practice test. And they've got these out here too. These are available on Amazon. If you're in a big city in Japan, you can buy these at the bookstore. Take one of these and see where you're at. And in tomorrow's seminar, I've got a slide. I'll spoil it for you guys. But it's like if you are nailing N4, you're thinking about. If you're getting like 92% on N4, you're like, man, this is way too easy for me, you know. And then you take the N3, you're like, oh, got about 10 points or so. I can make that up before December. I'm in Japan. Which level are you going to register for? The N4. That's right. Walk away with it. Okay? Then start taking the N3. So then go on the JLPT website, get you some of these practice tests, and sort of figure out where you are. That test over there is issued by the JLPT people, the Japan Foundation. It is the exact same thing you will run into the day of. So get one of those. They're cheap. Like I said, they're like $15, and take it and see where you stand.
John, I have a question.
Yeah.
How much is the JLPT reserve?
It's about the equivalent of $60, 60 US dollars, like 5,500 or 6,000 yen, something like that. Again, you make the money. I know $60, that's an Xbox game. Sounds like a lot of money. You make the money. At least that's how I think about it. That's how I see the world. Any other questions? We got time for more questions? Yeah. This is like the most talkative group I've done this for. Usually people are just sort of thrown away by my energy. That's what I'm talking about. I know. Yeah.
Can you buy those test practice books from the States, or does it have to be from Amazon?
They're actually published in Japan, and it's more like Amazon sellers are selling the imports. So if you lived in a big city, even in Takamatsu, I don't know, bookstores are on the decline, but even in my city of 300,000 people, we had a big bookstore downtown that had all sorts of this type of stuff, like up on the 5th floor, along with all the English, like Harry Potter books and stuff like that. So if you're in a big enough city with a really big bookstore, it probably has a foreign books, English language novels and stuff, but also study materials for people living in Japan. I did look it up. They are on Amazon Japan, which a lot of you might make an account for, and they are also on Amazon US. If you wanted to order them before departure, you've still got some time for that. Okay, right here, John, I remember your name. Yeah.
So just looking for a little bit of advice. With my middle school that I'm going to be teaching at, they know that I have Japanese skills, and I was asked in the email what I would rather communicate in English or Japanese. I was kind of worried if I jump into Japanese and maybe they're using language that I'm not familiar with, or they're using vocabulary I'm not familiar with, would that cause issues with me, like making meetings and stuff like that? Should I just gradually move into it, or should I just say from the get-go, let's do Japanese?
I think there's different situations even in your school life, and we may talk about this in teaching it. I can't remember. When you're in the classroom, the stimulus is so important, and your students get so little stimulus for their English language acquisition. So if you're in the classroom explaining Japanese, or you say the textbook sentence and then you translate it for them in Japanese, you really deny them that stimulus they need. Yes, they struggle with it. Yes, it's difficult for them, but that's what learning is. So in the classroom or interacting with students, as much as possible, keep it in English. Now, and you guys can disagree with me or jump in, but like outside the classroom especially, they can't do a lot. Whatever you're imagining their ability is, it's that much lower. You don't have the perspective to imagine really how low their ability is right now. But after you get through like April and you see everything they've studied in the textbook, then you can kind of understand where their ability is and make English sentences. So with students, as much as possible, English. Your JTEs, another purpose of you going is to help their English ability. And so you will want to contribute to their English conversation practice. But in my case, I did a lot in Japanese because I worked with social studies teachers and music teachers on activities at school, and we had to speak Japanese. Elementary school, which I think we'll talk about, you've got to give the kids instructions and stuff in Japanese. They just won't understand you. And a lot of the elementary school teachers might not speak English. They might not be English teachers. You're just there, they're just a 4th grade teacher or whatever. So you may have to plan with them in Japanese and have lesson plans in a Japanese format that you can easily instruct the kids on what to do. So again, it's really going to depend on the situation, and just make your best judgment in those situations. In mine, I told you I taught at a rough school. Part of the reason I got placed there was because I had a high Japanese ability. And they told me, I don't care, they're like, John Sensei, I don't care what the JET program told you. Our goal here is to survive till the end of the day. And if you try to force these kids to speak English with you, they won't like you. And that'll make life a lot harder. So let these kids know you speak Japanese. Let them be like your friend. And they love me. They're like, "You're from America, that's where 50 Cent's from. Did you know Tupac?" And because I spoke Japanese and I was going through like a J-rap phase at the time. I was young, you know, we all were. Like those thug kids who were breaking windows and stuff. They had no problem coming and communicating with me because they knew I spoke Japanese. So there might be situations like that as well. Any other questions? I guess not. Well, guys, I'm out there on the socials at Mr. John Sensei. I do teach Japanese every week and sort of post interesting articles and resources, and I got my cards up here. Definitely stay in contact. I want to help you all out. Best of luck, especially with learning Japanese. Thank you.